Language is limited in form, but I hope that I can fill the form with an essence that is able to carry through to your spirit. And a few of the things that I would like to share just have to do with this journey of discovering yourself and compassion and patience. 3 years ago, I found myself sitting in a church service with a friend of mine. I had texted him the day before, and I'd only met him once prior to this. And in a time of need, I knew he was a person of faith. And so I texted him. I said, hey, I'd love to go to church with you tomorrow. I have nowhere to go. I have nowhere to stay, but this is what I feel like I need to do. And so I ended up spending the whole day with him, going to multiple services. He's a singer. And I remember sitting in that first service in like a blue Nike sweatshirt and some track pants and some sneakers, and just feeling like, out of place but in the right place at the same time, and being nourished by this pastor who was prepared to deliver a message, and didn't know who would be showing up that day or how would it affect them. But he delivered a sermon on fasting. And I'll never forget that. My upbringing was through Christianity, and it is the foundation of my spiritual, it's kind of it's what's most comfortable to me in terms of religion, in the sense of how I live my life, not necessarily in terms of dogma or association or even community. The focal point for me was always, do I understand what is being taught? That was always the intrigue for me, even from a young age, was all of the system aside, right? The system of doctrine aside, the do's and the do nots aside. Do I understand? Do I feel the truth? Can I discern the truth of what is being taught? What is the deeper meaning? How can I be receptive to it and let it direct my life, my footsteps? And there came a point in my experience where I felt that what I needed to do was take a step into the unknown, even though that felt like, at the time, taking a step away from God. And that's a big deal when you're raised the way many of us are raised. I had to be careful, because for me it was not an act of rebellion. There was nothing to push away from. It was simply a moment of honesty, a moment of clarity to continue on my path, on my journey. And I felt like I needed to go beyond what I felt was what a specific religion or belief system could offer me. And there are inherent, I will quote unquote say, inherent dangers with departing from something that works. I mean, let's not get it twisted. Religion as a system, as a community, as an institution, is so beneficial to humanity. So this is not a knock on religion. I am grateful for religious institutions. By, by far doing some of the most good in the world today, allowing people to come together in a spirit of one mind and one heart, and to acknowledge the highest power. That's powerful. That is so powerful. And I myself continue to find myself in and around religious communities, and I've begun to kind of redefine the word religion in my life and in my experience, because I am a religious person. There are certain rituals and practices that I know are good for me, that bring me closer to truth, to the truth within myself. And so religion is another word to me for spiritual routine, spiritual rigor, spiritual hygiene, spiritual practice that may or may not involve others. But I am a religious man. It's taken some time for me to, I think back to that day 3 years ago in that service. One of the notes that I took was, it's time to prepare. This is a time of preparation. And I thought, by the time that I'm 40, so give it 5 years of preparation. And mind you, at that time I have no idea where this where this voice is coming from, right? Where this feeling inside of me is coming from that's talking about preparation. I'm just feeling it out. It's like, okay, this is what it feels like. It feels like this is the start of something. This is even before the start, right? I'm approaching this time that is not a time of accomplishment, but a time of preparation. And 3 years into it, I can say that that was truly a prophetic revelation during that sermon, during that time, because the past 3 years have done nothing but transform the circumstances of my life, the way that I think, the way that I feel, the way that I look. There have been spiritual practices that I did not even know existed that I am now embracing, that are part of who I am. And it feels like who I always was, who I was always meant to be. Meditation, transcendental meditation, breath work. I use the Wim Hof app to just guide me through breath work, breath retention. Kriya yoga, that one is special to me because, and then I'll say Reiki healing. I have an inclination. There was actually a dream that I had. I mean, dreams, right? My dreams have been different. There has been a lot more, I would say, purpose. There's been a lot more intent held within the way that I dream, the content of my dream, the recall of my dreams have been magnified. The way people perceive me has changed. It has become something on a regular basis where folks will comment on my calmness, which is not different from what it always was. I think even as a child, I would remember people using words like grounded or sober or stoic, right? Those were always words that I used to hear from adults even, and not really understand, because I don't think they understood. They were trying to put words to my presence, and as a child, you don't really comprehend yet the fact that your mere presence can have an effect on people to the extent that they want to try to articulate that to you. there's a magnetism there that is taking me time to understand, and to fully understand that I needed to walk away from a certain system of practice, of belief, because of the, I'll say, constraints. There needed to be, I needed to be a lot more, I needed to take risks. I needed to experiment. I needed to explore what what the world has to offer, what humanity has to offer, what we have learned throughout time, what the what the brightest and most spiritual of us have discovered, to take it all in, really. And so I gave myself that permission, and it was a difficult time spiritually. I really found out, I guess, the hard way, what life could be like without a spiritual practice. I mean, life's hard enough, you know, and there have just been, and I will say that it's worth it. It's worth it, but there are certain, I would say, pitfalls that I would like to explore on this channel and with you as we journey together. That I think people should just be aware of. But I will say that this time of preparation, by practicing Kriya Yoga, has been special to me, because these practices, Reiki, breathwork, Kriya, being more in tune with nature, um, spending more time journaling and writing, has allowed me to accomplish a goal which I had as a young person, as a young boy. I had a goal. I never wrote it down, but it was to experience life, to really experience it, to not just make decisions and live in a dream, right? But there was always this, and I think this is what people try to comment on, but there was always this observer sensation, this detachment that I had, which was difficult to manage. It led to some severe depression. It led to some feelings that I still feel now, but I have the strength and the skill to manage. But when you're detached and you feel, and you're also on the business end of some people's maladaptation, right? When you have abusive people around you, um, and it's like, kind of like, forgive them, for they know not what they do, right? When it's unfortunate that when people are just at a different stage in their development, will take advantage of someone like me, perhaps someone like you, who is not necessarily interested in eye for an eye, but who is interested in understanding the experience of life as they perceive it. And it's like people just will eat at you. They'll just come at you, and it's really interesting, the power that one human being can have over another, even unconsciously. And that has been one of the big revelations and awakenings to my leadership, to my position in this life, to my responsibility, which sounds crazy, because I really have to manage my closeness to people. And what I'm learning is that the way that is managed is by being as little of myself as possible. So it's a getting out of the way, right? Or in other words, I'm not the doer. There's no credit I can take for the effect that I, quote unquote, I have on others. There's just no, my responsibility is to practice religiously and to continue to draw closer to my truth. And inherently, as a byproduct, people experience something pleasant, something transcendent. There's something that's revealed to people about themselves or about a situation. There's something that God has gifted me with that when I tap in to clarity, it spills out for other people. And it's not something I can control directly. It's not something that I can try to do. It is just a fact of life, of the way that I've been created, of my soul. And so now the call that I'm feeling is to put myself in positions that feel effortless to just be who I am. And that is, still part of this preparation. And at times it's discouraging because I feel this angst, or I feel out of place, or I feel, whatever. But there are little lessons that I can't ignore along the way. And I'll wrap up with this one. For example, just yesterday I realized, because we'll have, for example, I'll have a sensation within me to want to give up. I'll have a sensation of entropy, of death, right? Of confusion, of depression. And when I was younger and less skilled and less mature, I would want to act on that. I would want to hurt myself, or I would want to lash out. I needed to do something, right? This emotion would compel me to act. And I would act out of my true character. Or in other words, I would do something that was out of alignment with who I really am, because I wasn't adept at maneuvering with this force. On the other hand, there are temptations of the flesh, I guess I would say, not necessarily from within, but enticements, right? Overindulging, lust, wanting to say something, wanting to reach for something outside of me to satisfy a void. Okay? And so these are like two opposite ends of a wave, of the amplitude of a wave. You can imagine just kind of things bowing outward, going away from each other. And I've learned, even just up till yesterday, I've come to an understanding that withstanding the urge, riding out these sensations on the high end and on the low end, gives me power. It increases the voltage of my connection. And every time I'm able to stand in strength and not act out of that impulse, I am rewarded with more. There's something that I can feel that is added unto me. And that is not easy. There's a certain strength I had to acquire, that I had to go through some things, and we all have to go through some things to develop a trust, to develop an awareness, to develop a grit and a willingness to do something as simple as say, no, that's not who I am. I'm going to withstand that. and to follow through while still being compassionate for the human that you are. To love yourself through it, to witness the pattern, and to come out on the other side is one of the best feelings. And I'll tell you what, in certain communities, in certain systems, that is going to be hard to accomplish because there is a foundation of fear. I'll just put it plain and simple. The aim of many of the religions is a status quo. And many people are becoming not just dissatisfied, because I would say that paints people in the wrong light. I think people are in the right to say, hey, there's something more. I want to be fed to the depths of my soul. I want to be satisfied in life, and you deserve to be satisfied. And a lot of what is being taught today isn't satisfactory. The system of religion isn't satisfactory for someone like myself to go through experientially what I was set on this earth to experience and to cultivate and to understand and to teach and to learn. That just wasn't going to happen in that other system. I need to go out and curate my own religion. And now going out and curating my own vocation. So I hope this helps someone, gives you the courage to strike out on your own. Just know that you are stepping into an unknown. It's disorienting, but it's worth the attempt. And as long as you maintain if your devotion is true, you're sincere, you don't have to be perfect. Just have a pure desire, have an intention. And oftentimes that comes because we're in so much pain. We're suffering a lot. We've been through a lot. And so naturally a lot of us are just really sincere seekers. Maintain your sincerity and keep going.